My family thought I'd never see their secret group chat until I did a screenshot and ended our relationship. Hey everyone, you ever have one of those moments where everything you thought you knew about your life just shatters? Because that's what happened to me. It started as just a weird feeling, a small thing that didn't make sense, something I could have brushed off, but I didn't. And what I found, it changed everything. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, the kind where the sun filters through the windows just enough to make you comfortable, but not enough to motivate you to do anything. I was at my parents' house, sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee while my mom bustled around making lunch. Her phone was on the counter, buzzing with notifications, and I wasn't trying to snoop. But then I saw it. A message popped up on her screen from a group chat called Family First. My stomach dropped, because I wasn't in that group. Let me back up a little. My name is Claire. I'm 32, and I always thought I was close with my family. My dad, Robert, is your typical dad joke guy, constantly cracking corny jokes, even when nobody laughs. My mom, Linda, is the glue of the family. Nurturing, caring, sometimes a little overbearing, but she means well. Then there's my older brother, Daniel, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one my parents always bragged about. And my younger sister, Jessica, the baby of the family. She was always the one who got special treatment just because she knew exactly how to work it. We weren't perfect. We had our share of arguments. But we were family. Or at least, that's what I thought. I stared at my mom's phone, my heart pounding. Family first. A group chat with my parents. My brother. My sister. And not me. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe it was just for planning birthdays. Maybe it was something they forgot to add me to. But the more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. Why would they intentionally leave me out? What were they talking about that I wasn't allowed to see? I decided to bring it up casually. Big mistake. Hey Mom, I said, sipping my coffee. What's family first? She froze. Just for a second. Just a tiny hesitation. But it was enough. Oh, she said quickly, waving a hand. It's just for planning surprises. She wouldn't look at me. And that hesitation? That was all I needed to know. She was lying. For the next few days, I couldn't let it go. I replayed every family gathering, every weird interaction. Had I done something wrong? Was I being punished for something? Or worse, was there something they didn't want me to know? I tried asking Jessica about it. She's the most straightforward in the family, so I figured she'd just tell me. But when I brought it up, she froze. Oh, that? She said, brushing it off. It's nothing, Claire. Just stupid family stuff. And just like that, I knew. She was in on it, too. Next, I went to Daniel. He's usually the calm, logical one. The one who doesn't get caught up in drama. So I figured, if anyone would just tell me the truth, it would be him. I was wrong. The moment I mentioned the group chat, he got defensive. Why are you snooping around? He snapped. I blinked. Snooping? I literally saw a notification pop up on Mom's phone. If Mom and Dad wanted you in it, they would have added you, he said coldly. And that stung. It felt like I was suddenly an outsider in my own family. Like they were all in on something that I wasn't supposed to know. Every time I brought it up, my parents changed the subject. Jessica started avoiding my calls. Daniel refused to talk about it at all. I tried to ignore the feeling in my gut, but it just kept growing. Until finally, I decided to stop waiting for answers. I was going to find them myself, no matter what it took. And what I found turned my entire world upside down. The more I thought about it, the more I knew I had to find out the truth. Because if it was really nothing, like they all claimed, why was everyone acting so guilty? Why was my own family treating me like I was a stranger? I needed answers. And if they weren't going to give them to me, I was going to get them myself. I started with the most obvious approach. I waited until I was at my parents' house again. Mom was in the kitchen, Dad was watching TV, and her phone, it was right there on the counter. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but at this point, I didn't care. I picked up the phone, clicked on the screen, and my stomach dropped. The chat was muted. Muted. My mom was getting messages from that group all the time. And she didn't want me to hear them. What the hell were they hiding? I stared at the screen, my hands sweating. I knew I didn't have long before she came back. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I tapped the chat, and I started scrolling. And what I found shattered me. The first few messages didn't seem like much. A couple of reminders about family events. Some inside jokes I didn't understand. But then, I found something that made my blood run cold. Daniel, are we still keeping this from Claire? She's going to find out eventually. Jessica, yeah, but we agreed not to say anything. It's just easier this way. Mom, she's better off not knowing. No need to bring up the past. The past. What past? My heart started racing. Then I saw the next message. And I felt sick. Dad, We all agreed. Claire doesn't need to know she was never supposed to be part of this family. I nearly dropped the phone. What the hell? I could barely breathe as I kept reading. Mom, there's no point in telling her now. It would only hurt her. Jessica, yeah, she's already got her own life. It's not like it matters anymore. Daniel, it matters. If she finds out the truth some other way, it's going to be worse. Dad, she won't. As long as we all keep quiet, she'll never know the difference. I gripped the counter, my hands shaking. What were they saying? What truth was I not supposed to know? And then, I saw it. The message made my entire world crumble. Mom, Claire was never meant to be ours. She was supposed to go back. Go back. Back where? I felt lightheaded, like the ground had just been ripped out from under me. Was I adopted? Had I been part of some other family before this? And if so, why didn't I know? Before I could scroll any further, I heard footsteps. I barely had time to put the phone down before my mom walked back into the kitchen. She saw me standing there, pale, shaking. Claire? What's wrong? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because how do you even ask your mother? Was I never supposed to be your child? I didn't say anything. Not then. I left, got in my car, drove without knowing where I was going. Because nothing in my life made sense anymore. And I needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. I don't even remember the drive home. One moment, I was in my parents' kitchen, staring at my mom like she was a stranger. The next, I was in my apartment, sitting in the dark, my mind racing. Because no matter how many ways I tried to make sense of it, there was only one explanation. I was never supposed to be part of this family. And if that was true, who was I? For the next few hours, I just sat there, staring at my phone, replaying the messages in my head, over and over, trying to find some other meaning, some other way this could all make sense. But there wasn't one. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized. There were signs, little things I had ignored my whole life. Like how I never looked like anyone in my family. Daniel and Jessica had the same dark brown hair and hazel eyes. I had light blonde hair and blue eyes. People used to joke, you must take after some long-lost relative. I had always laughed it off. But now, I wasn't so sure. Or how my parents had almost no baby pictures of me. Jessica had a whole album. Daniel had too. And me? Just a few scattered photos. Whenever I asked about it, my mom would just say, oh, we lost a lot of pictures when we moved. I had believed her. Because why wouldn't I? But now I knew better. I needed answers. Real ones. And since no one in my family was going to tell me the truth, I had to find it myself. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Old emails. Family documents. Anything that could give me a clue. And that's when I found it. A sealed envelope in my email archives. An old attachment from years ago. Labeled, Claire, Birth Records. My hands shook as I clicked it. And the moment it opened, my entire world shattered. It wasn't my birth certificate. Not exactly. It was a legal document. One with my parents' names listed as my legal guardians. Not my birth parents. Guardians. I wasn't their daughter. I was their responsibility. At least, until I was supposed to go back. But I never did. And now, I needed to know why. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Then, I grabbed my phone and called the only person who might actually tell me the truth. My grandmother. She answered on the third ring. Claire, sweetheart. How are you? I swallowed hard. Grandma, I need to ask you something. She must have heard the tension in my voice, because she didn't say anything for a long time. Then, finally, she sighed. You found out, didn't you? Hearing my grandmother say those words, it hit me like a punch to the gut. You found out, didn't you? Like this was some big secret everyone knew about, except me. I felt numb. So it's true, I whispered. She sighed. Claire, sweetheart. I was hoping you'd never have to know. I gripped the phone tighter. Know what? Another long pause. Then, finally, she said it. You were never supposed to stay with us. My heart dropped. What does that even mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. Your birth parents, they weren't in a position to take care of you when you were born. I felt a chill run down my spine. So, what? My parents took me in. Not exactly, she admitted. Then what? Another pause. Then, she finally said it. Claire, your parents were only supposed to have you temporarily. They were supposed to return you to your birth family when things were stable. But they never did. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. They never did? I repeated. No. Why? Because they got too attached, she admitted. And by the time your birth family tried to get you back, your parents refused. I couldn't breathe. My whole life, I thought my family had chosen me, that I belonged with them. But the truth? I was never supposed to be there. Who are they? I asked, my voice shaking. Who? My birth parents. Where are they? Another pause. Then, quietly, my grandmother said, "They tried to fight for you, Claire. But by the time they had the means to get you back, your parents made sure it never happened." I felt sick. What do you mean? Your parents fought it in court. They argued that you had already been with them too long, that removing you would be traumatic. And eventually, your birth family lost. Tears burned in my eyes. I had spent my whole life trying to fit in with a family that never truly wanted me. And the people who actually did? They had been kept away. I stood up, pacing my apartment. Do you know where they are now? A long sigh. Yes. I stopped cold. You do. Claire, are you sure you want to open this door? I had never been more sure of anything. Tell me where to find them. I could barely hear my grandmother over the sound of my heartbeat. Tell me where to find them. I repeated. She sighed, like she had been dreading this moment. They moved a few years ago. I still have an old address. But Claire, please think about this. Think about what? I snapped. Your parents are not my parents, I cut in. She fell silent. And that's when I realized she had always known the truth. She had known, and she let it happen. I swallowed hard, gripping my phone. Send me the address. Another pause. Then, finally, okay. The message came through a few minutes later. An address. A name. My real mother's name. I stared at it, my vision blurring. I had no memory of her. No recollection of what my life could have been. But now, I had a chance to find out. And I wasn't going to waste it. The drive felt surreal. It took 3 hours to get there, long stretches of road, my mind racing the entire time. I kept imagining different scenarios. Would she recognize me? Would she slam the door in my face? Would she even want to see me? By the time I pulled up to the house, my hands were shaking. It was a small, single-story home, nothing fancy, but warm. Lived in. I sat in my car for what felt like forever. Then, finally, I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A woman answered. Mid-50s. Gentle face. Eyes exactly like mine. The moment she saw me, she froze, like she was staring at a ghost. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Tears welled in her eyes before I even said a word. Claire. My heart stopped. She knew me. She knew my name. I swallowed hard. Hi, Mom. And just like that, she pulled me into the tightest hug of my life. The second she hugged me, I lost it. I don't even know why. I hadn't expected to cry. But the moment her arms wrapped around me, it was like something inside me broke. Because for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never felt before. I felt at home. She pulled back, cupping my face in her hands, studying me like she couldn't believe I was real. You look just like your father, she whispered, her voice shaking. Her eyes were red, tears streaming down her face. I never thought I'd see you again. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I didn't even know you existed until a few days ago. She looked like I had just punched her. Her whole body tensed. They never told you? She whispered. I shook my head. Not a word. She inhaled sharply, gripping the doorframe like she needed to steady herself. Then, finally, you better come inside. The house was small but warm. Cozy furniture, family photos lining the walls. Photos I wasn't in. A lifetime I had never been a part of. She led me to the couch, still wiping at her eyes. I don't even know where to start, she admitted. How about the beginning? I asked. She took a shaky breath, nodding. Okay. And then? She told me everything. I had been taken. Not kidnapped, not in a dramatic way. But I was supposed to go back. And my adoptive parents had made sure I never did. When I had you, I wasn't in a good place, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. I had no stable job, no support system. I wanted to raise you, but I needed time to get on my feet. So your father and I made the hardest decision of our lives. We asked for help. Help? I repeated, bitterly. She nodded. A temporary guardianship. Your adoptive parents agreed to take care of you for a short time, just until we were stable enough to bring you home. I clenched my fists, but they never gave me back. She nodded. Tears filled her eyes again. We fought. We begged. We went to court. But they had money, connections, and we had nothing. She inhaled shakily. And eventually, we lost. The room was dead silent. I stared at the floor, trying to process it all. I had spent my entire life thinking I belonged with a family that never truly wanted me. And the people who actually did want me? They had spent years grieving me. My real parents had been alive this whole time, missing me, wanting me, and I had never even known. I looked up at my mother. Her face was so full of pain, like she had never stopped mourning me, like she had never let go. And suddenly, I knew. I needed to meet my father. Where is he? I whispered. Her breath hitched, and then she said the words that made my stomach drop. He doesn't know you're here. He doesn't know you're here. Those words hit me like a brick. I stared at her, my heart pounding. He doesn't know? I repeated. She shook her head. I never told him. I swallowed hard. Why? Her hands trembled as she wiped at her eyes. Because after we lost you, it broke him, Claire. He never recovered. I felt cold all over. What do you mean? She took a shaky breath. He never stopped waiting for you to come home. My chest tightened. I had spent my entire life thinking I was just there, an afterthought in my adoptive family. But the truth? Somewhere out there, a man had been waiting for me for over 30 years, and he had no idea that I had just walked back into his world. I looked up at my mother. I need to see him. She hesitated. Claire, he's not the same man he used to be. I don't care, I said. I need to see him. She studied my face for a long time. Then, finally, she nodded. The drive was silent. My mother sat beside me, staring out the window, lost in thought. I could feel the weight of everything. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about him, the father who had never stopped hoping. And now, that hope was about to become real. We pulled up to a small, modest house. It looked lonely, like it belonged to someone who had spent years living in memories. I took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and walked up to the door. My mom stayed behind. This was something I had to do alone. I knocked. Seconds passed. Then, the door slowly opened, and I came face to face with my father. He was older than I imagined. Gray hair, tired eyes, like life had worn him down. But the moment he saw me, something changed. His breath caught. His eyes widened. He gripped the doorframe like he was afraid to let go. Claire, he whispered. I felt my throat tighten. Hi, Dad. And just like that, he broke down. He pulled me into his arms, his whole body shaking. Tears streamed down his face as he held me like he was afraid I'd disappear. I thought I lost you forever, he choked out. I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't even know you were looking for me. He pulled back, gripping my shoulders, staring at me like I was a miracle. I never stopped, Claire. His voice cracked. I never stopped. We talked for hours. About everything. The fight he and my mother had put up. The years of grief. The hope never fully faded. And me? I told him about my life. The life I had lived without him. The struggles. The loneliness. The feeling that I had never truly belonged. And when I was done, he looked at me, eyes filled with something I had never seen before. Love. Real, unconditional love. You belong here, he whispered. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. It's been a year since that day. I still talk to my birth parents all the time. We're not making up for lost time, because you can't make up for something like that. But we're building something new. And as for my adoptive family, I haven't spoken to them since. Because in the end, I realized something. They were never my real family. Family isn't about blood. It's about the people who choose you. And my real family? They never stopped choosing me.